Another way to insert pivot table is you can just click on the cell and then come to your insert tab. Under your insert tab, click on pivot table. All right. Now here you need to give the name of the table that contains your data, that Excel table. That table, that range of cells that you converted to a table in Excel, you need to click on it. You need to give the name here. All right. So once you give the name here, Excel would automatically connect the pivot table to it. Okay. So I'm going to call this sales underscore data because that is the name of that my table, sales underscore data. So once I click OK, it says it is not valid. Beautiful. So I have to go and look for the name of that table. What is the name? So you see the name of the table is sales table, not sales underscore data. Do you see that? So the name of it is sales underscore table. Okay. So I'm going to come back to that sheet, insert pivot table, and then call the name of the table sales underscore table and click OK. Aha, good. So you see it pops it up now. Can you see that? All right. So I can now begin my analysis. So that is how to insert new pivot tables again and again. Okay, again and again. All right, so now let's now begin to analyze our data. Let's start analyzing our data. I'm going to start with this, or let me first delete these pivot tables. This one and this one. Good. Where we have insert, draw, page layer. Now, I'm going to take it from the top and we're going to start with sales performance by different categories. First, we're looking at sales performance by product. Sales performance by product. So let's start. On this pivot table, I'm going to remove this country and I'm going to start. So if I want to evaluate sales performance by product, some things I can look at. Some things I can look at is, the sum of sales by the product name, the sum of sales by the product category, the sum of sales by the product, if there's subcategory there. Then I would also want to check if there is a correlation between the sum of quantity bought and the sum of sales generated. Okay. Then I also want to check for the profit as well, and then the profit margin of the product. Okay, so those are things that I might be interested in checking, all right, to evaluate the product performance. So I would do for the product category, and I would also do for the products themselves. But let's start first with the product category. Let us look at sales by product category. I would start with this pivot table, and once I'm done with that, once I start with this pivot table, I will insert another pivot table at the side, and you see how it reflects or how it works. So sales by product name. So I'm going to, or sales by product category. So I'm going to drag category to rows in order to see the category of products offered by the company first. Okay, so how do I get the sales for each one of these products? Because these are typical questions that they would want to ask you. Okay, imagine you apply for a data analyst role now, and they give you an assessment, okay, that, oh, first do this, let us assess your level, your what's it called, knowledge. Okay, let us assess your skills, okay, and they give you something that, okay, first do this. Now, how would you be able to find the sum of sales for each one of these categories if you don't use pivot table? You get, okay, so category to rows, you have the categories given. Now you need the sales, the sum of sales. So once you drag sales, which is a quantitative data, once you drag it to the values area, it gives you this. Okay, you have the sum of sales by category. Now, there are many things you can do from this end. Okay, there are many things you can do from this end. So the first one we're going to look at is we're going to give this pivot table a name. So this pivot table is showing sales by products. Okay, so let's see something quickly. Name the pivot table by coming up to where I have pivot table analyze. Okay, and then you would see I have the name of the pivot table on the left hand side of my ribbon here. Okay, so I call this sales by country because that was the pivot table. That was what I had there before. So I'm going to change it to sales by products. Sales by products. Good. So this is sum of sales by product. Now I might want to, it might interest you to also include the currency symbols. I mean, is it dollar? Is it pounds? Is it naira? Let's see the currency symbol and let us know where we are getting the higher sales from. So how do you do that? Now, if you come to where you have row labels, if you double click this heading that says row labels, you'll be able to rename what you have there. So instead of row labels, I'll call it product category. Press enter. Product category. Okay. Now, if you try and do the same thing for where you have sum of sales amount, you won't be able to edit it in the cell. It is going to bring up a pop-up box for you, which is what we want. So if I double click this side, now from this value field settings, that is the name of this window. From this value field settings, I can change the name of the header. Currently, it says sum of sales amount. Okay. If I don't want this, if I don't want it to be called sum of sales amount, I can change the name here. Now, beneath it, we have summarize field value by, or summarize value field by. So it's saying choose which type of calculation you want to use to summarize the data from the selected field. Okay, so it's just like your aggregates, sum ifs and count ifs. So you know that you're working with your amount column. So what this is asking you is that, oh, do you want to sum the amount column? Do you want to count? That is count if. Do you want to use average? That's average if. Do you want to use max? That's max if. Do you want to, and so on and so forth. Do you get? Okay, so we're leaving it as sum because we want to get the total revenue or the total sales. Let's call it total sales. Okay, now under the other aspect that says show value as, we don't worry, you will not be coming here as much, but most times is to show the value as a percentage of something. So if you click the drop down here, you can show, instead of showing the value itself, you can show it as a percentage of maybe the grand total or percentage of column total, something like that. I'll come back to this. Okay, let's come back to summarize values by. Okay, so yes, it is sales by product category. All right, now I'm going to leave it on sum, and I'm going to come to number format. Now, number format allows me to specify the format of this column. I'll click on number format, and here I can give the format I want. So I want currency and I want dollar. So it's already on dollar, beautiful. So 2 decimal places. So this is good, I am fine. I'll click on OK. Now, once I click on OK, that number format is already stored, but I have not saved this yet. But before I do that, I'm going to rename this. I'll rename it. I'll change the name to total sales. Total sales. Or let's call it total revenue. No, let's call it total sales. This is fine. Total sales. Okay. And then I am going to click on OK. Okay. So you can see that it's renamed it as total sales. And then in here, I have the sales amount with the currency already. Do you see that? Okay. Then at the bottom, I have grand total as well. Now, at times, you might wish not to show the grand total. What you just have to do is come to your design tab. Okay, click on the design tab at the top. And then where you have column to where is it, grand totals. Okay, where you have grand totals, click this and then you say off. So you can off it for rows and columns, whatever it is that you want to do. If I turn it off, you can see that it goes away. Do you see that? It disappears, the grand total. Okay, if I click back there, I come back to my design tab, grand total, I'll turn it on back. So it pops up back. Okay, so that is how you do that. Now, you can change the color of your pivot table from here, still under the design tab. Click on any color to change the color, should you choose to. I think I like this. So, and I have this, and you are done with your first pivot table. So we have the total sales by product category. So which product category is generating the highest revenue for the company? So imagine that is the question. Okay, remember, you applied for a data analyst job and they gave you these data sets and you've been tasked that, okay, you are going to be evaluating sales performance by this. And let's say one of the questions they ask you from this data set is just, oh, which product category is generating the highest revenue? Okay, or what is the revenue generation by product category? So imagine where we were coming from. If you remember, we were coming from a very dirty data set that was not even consolidated. So are you beginning to see the effect of data analysis now on all I am teaching you? So we started from the data cleaning, transformation, and then the pivot table analysis aspect, okay, in order to be able to get that, oh, it is office supplies that is generating the highest revenue. So now, if you look at this pivot table, you will see that it's sorted the product category in alphabetical order. Now, you might wish to sort it based on the sales column, the total sales column, from largest to smallest. So what you do here is, if it is this, you can simply click on this drop down and, sort the product category column. But if it is the total sales we want to sort, there is no drop down here. So what you do is you click on any value at all in that column, and you right click. So once you right click, it brings out some options for you, couple of options for you to choose from. So what we want to do is that we want to rearrange this, okay, sort it. I'll come to sort, and I'll see from largest to smallest. So sort largest to smallest. So I'll click on this, and you can see automatically that I now have it sorted largest to smallest. So now I see easily that, oh, office supplies comes first, then followed by furniture, then technology, before the drugs at all. Okay, so this is more like, oh, day-to-day products, okay, and then this is more like health related products. So that is something again that you can create a what is it called for? You can tend to create a categorization for. Okay, so you can decide to say, I want to categorize these three, and then I also want to categorize these three or these six. Okay, you do that from your data source, and you'd categorize it into, okay, day-to-day products and health-related products. Okay, so that you can get the sum of sales by each one of those categories as well. Okay, so let's proceed. Now I have this pivot table telling me that office supplies comes first, followed by furniture, followed by technology. But what if I wanted to get, oh, the sum of quantity instead? Okay, what if I wanted to get the sum of quantity instead? Okay, all right, so somebody asked a question, what of inserting a filter to help you sort? So you might be able to insert a filter if you come over to your home tab, okay, but you'll see that the sort and filter icon has been deactivated because you are currently on a pivot table. So in your calculation, okay, it deactivates the sort and filter icon for your pivot table. You see that, okay? So entirely on the pivot table, you don't have this icon, sort and filter, or this function, sort and filter, you don't have it activated. Okay, it is not like working with a normal Excel spreadsheet. Okay, except it is not a pivot table, then you should have that activated. All right, so now you can further your analysis on this same pivot table. Let's say I also wanted to now get, oh, the quantity sold for each one of these, or I wanted to get the total profit. Let's say I wanted to get the total profit as well for each one of these product categories. So what I would simply do is, if I want to do it on the same pivot table, I will simply create a column for total profit. So in order to create that column for total profit, come back to your pivot table, you need to drag your profit to values as well. So you put it directly under your sales. So once you put profit under values, it automatically takes the sum of profits. Now, if you remember from the previous class, I said it takes the sum of profit because the profit column is a quantitative data, or your sales column is a quantitative data. So it will take the sum automatically. If it is not a quantitative data, what it will do is take the counts. Okay, so it is a quantitative data, so it takes the sum automatically. So that is good. Now, the next thing I want to do is, format this properly. I should have sum of profit or total profit instead. And then in here, I should have the, what's it called? Currency and all of that. So I'm going to double click my header for sum of profit. I'll rename it and call it total profit. And then under number format, I'm going to change the currency good to dollar, and then I'll click OK, and I'll click OK now. So it gives me the total profit for each one of these product categories, as you can see. Okay, it gives me the total profit for each one of the product categories. Now, What if I wanted to see, oh, what is the profit margin? That's more like the profit per sale for each one of this category. Okay, because I could have that, oh, I'm making so much profit from a particular product, but the profit margin is low, if you understand. Okay, or I'm making so much sales from a particular product and the profit margin is low, resulting to less profit. Okay, so let's see if that is the reason. Now, how can I calculate profit margin? Profit margin is calculated by dividing your profit by the sales. Okay, but instead of going back to our data to create a column to do sales divided by profit, what I'll simply do here is teach you how to create a calculated field. Okay, so a field that you add to your pivot table that does not come from your data source itself is known as a calculated field. Okay, so what you will do is you go to your pivot table analyze tab. So follow carefully. Pivot table analyze. And then you click on fields, items, and sets. Fields, items, and sets. Click here, and then you click on calculated field. Okay, so once I click on calculated field, I'll be able to call the field name. So I want to rename this field and call it profit margin. Okay, and then the formula I'm going to give here is I'll tell it to calculate the sales amount. So under your fields, click on sales amount and click on insert field. Once you click on insert fields, it inserts the field into the formula bar here. Okay, so this sales amount, then I'll put divided by, which is my forward slash, and I'll click profit and insert. Or sorry, it should be profit first. So click profit, insert field, then divided by, click sales amount and insert field. So once you do this, you click add, okay? Or you click OK, anyone is fine. So I'll click OK, and once I click OK, it adds a column for sum of profit margin. Now your profit margin is usually not summed. So what I'm going to do instead is, I'm going to rename this and I'll change the currency, the data type from currency to percentage, because profit margin is usually it's a ratio value, okay, and can be represented as a percentage. Okay, so what this is saying is that 28% of the sales generated for office supplies happen to be profits. Okay, so this one is saying that 31% of the sales generated is your profit. So you can see that you're having some very nice profit margin on products that even have lesser sales and profits. So meaning if you are able to increase the sales on those kinds of products, then you're ultimately increasing your profits even beyond the profits you have from these products with these profit margins. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to, once again, double click this header and I'll change this to profit margin. I'll just call it profit underscore margin, profit underscore margin. And then I'll come to number formats and I would say change it to percentage, and I'll click OK. And finally click OK. So it gives me the profit margin in percentage. Beautiful, isn't it? So you can see 30% of this amount is the profit margin. Okay, so meaning if you make sales of $143,000, your profit is $44,000. That's 30%. Okay, and if you make sales of, you can see this one, it's saying it's 27.98%. All right, so now let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see something. Okay. So we are done with this particular aspect. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and insert another pivot table over here. I'll click a blank cell and I would insert pivot table. And I'm going to connect it to that my table sales underscore table. And I'll click OK. Good. Now I want to do a brief analysis. Okay, still the same thing, but this time around, I am going to be exploring the percentage. What percentage of grand total does each one of this category generate for me? Okay, so I'm doing basically the same thing I have on this pivot table, but instead I'm going to be showing percentage of grand total. So let's do that quickly. Now, your profit margin, you don't usually have percentage of grand total, because if you look at this, although you're having all this profit margin here, at the bottom, if you look at it, you see that it's not giving you sum of the profit margin. Okay, that is how it's meant to be. So the profit margin you're having here is, oh, from this total sales you generated across all the product categories, this is the total profit. So the profit margin for the entire thing is 27.59%, which is very correct. Okay, so on this new pivot table, I'm going to look at, still looking at my category on rows, and then sales amount on values, profit on values, and profit margin on values. Okay, now, so I'm going to format this. I want to change the color to follow the second one. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and format all this quickly. So for this sum of sales amount, double click, and I'm going to call this, I'll come to show values as. Okay, show values as, and where I have show values as no calculation, I'm going to click that drop down and I'll click a percentage of grand total. Okay, percentage of grand total, and I'll click OK. So what I have here now is, oh, what percentage of the total amount is that particular category generating for you? So if I sort this column from largest to smallest, office supply is generating 46% of our total revenue. Do you see that? This does not tell you. Okay, you just see this, that, oh, you're generating 1 million. Oh, nice, not bad. Okay, but you don't know that, oh, it is 46%. Almost half of the total revenue is coming from office supplies. Do you see that? So you do the same thing for sum of profits. So I'm going to change this, or let's change the title here. I'll call this sales percentage. Then profit percentage. So let me double click this, profit percentage, show values as, and I'll change this to percent of grand total and click OK. Good. So you can see this is 46.67% of the total profit. The sales is 46.01% of the total sales. Okay, you can see antiseptics. The sales is 4.69% of your total sales, but the profit is 5.24%. Do you see that? So, but for your profit margin, you're not going to be saying percentage of grand total, okay? You just say, oh, profit underscore margin, and change the format here to percentage and click OK. Okay. So this is your profit margin. Okay.
Endeavor to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thank you. See you in our next class. Bye.